For centuries, sailors swore they saw monsters in the deep, tentacled nightmares the size of ships. Scientists laughed. Turns out, the sailors were right. Today I'm breaking down every cryptid case that actually holds up under scrutiny, starting with the one that proved the experts wrong: the giant squid. Here's the thing about the giant squid. For over 300 years, it was a joke. A fairy tale drunk whalers told each other to explain why Dave didn't come back from his shift. But accounts of enormous tentacled creatures surfaced across centuries of maritime folklore, from Scandinavian kraken legends to naturalists who couldn't explain what fishermen kept describing. Nobody believed them. Then, in 1873, a fisherman off Newfoundland fought one off with an axe and brought back a severed tentacle. Suddenly, the scientific community had to have a very awkward conversation with itself. Modern specimens have been measured at up to 43 feet. Sperm whales bear sucker scars up to 4 inches in diameter from fighting these things, which is, a circular wound permanently stamped into a whale's face. Not ideal. And here's the kicker. Despite hundreds of recovered specimens, nobody filmed a living giant squid in its natural habitat until 2004. A full video in the wild didn't happen until 2012. They live at depths of roughly 1,000 to 3,000 feet, meaning a massive animal hid from direct observation for centuries simply because we weren't looking deep enough. That's not a fringe theory, that's a verified fact. But the giant squid isn't the only creature science gave up on too early. The thylacine. Here's the thing about the thylacine. It's not really a cryptid. We have photographs of it, we have film footage, we know exactly what it looked like, how it moved, and when the last confirmed one died. September 7th, 1936, at the Hobart Zoo. This isn't a mystery animal. It's an animal we drove to extinction and then kept seeing afterward, and the sightings never stopped. From 1945 through 2019, people in Tasmania have reported encounters with an animal that officially doesn't exist anymore. Most are easy to dismiss. Blurry photos, nighttime glimpses, the usual. But then there's the 1982 Peter Sharp photograph. Broad daylight, coordinates recorded. An animal with unmistakable striped hindquarters just standing there like it didn't get the memo about being extinct. Hair and scat samples collected in 1969 and 2012 came back inconclusive, but morphologically consistent with thylacine biology, which is, not ideal if you're trying to close the case. The frustrating part is that Tasmania's wilderness is genuinely dense enough to hide a small population, but nobody has ever recovered authenticated remains. No bone, no tissue, no clean DNA. The evidence gets tantalizingly close and then just stops. But if you think an animal we have actual video of is a tough case, wait until you hear about the small ape walking upright through Sumatra that nobody can catch, the orang pendek. In 2003, scientists discovered Homo floresiensis on the Indonesian island of Flores, a 3-foot-tall hominid species that survived until roughly 50,000 years ago. That discovery proved small. Bipedal hominids persisted in Southeast Asia far longer than anyone believed. And about 900 miles northwest in the jungles of Sumatra, indigenous peoples have been describing exactly that kind of creature for at least 500 years. The orang pendek, translating to short person, is a 3 to 5 foot bipedal primate reportedly living in Kerinci Seblat National Park. These aren't vague campfire stories. These are detailed, consistent descriptions from dozens of independent communities, all predating European contact. No outside influence, just generations of people describing the same animal. But here's the thing. Primatologist Debbie Martyr documented 17 credible sightings between 1989 and 2000. In 1994, she watched one walk upright for 18 straight minutes at 100 feet, a trained primatologist staring at something she couldn't identify for nearly 20 minutes. That's not a glimpse, that's an observation. Hato, every known arboreal primate in the region can't sustain bipedal locomotion on rough ground. Whatever Martyr watched, it wasn't a gibbon having a weird day. And yet, no bones, no viable DNA, no photographs. The orang pendek sits in this maddening space where everything about it makes biological sense. The habitat supports it, the evolutionary precedent exists, the witnesses are credible, but the hard evidence just isn't there. But if a mystery primate in the jungle feels too remote to be unsettling, wait until you hear about the thing that terrorized an entire region of France and killed over 100 people. The beast of Gévaudan. This one isn't a mystery about whether something existed. Somewhere between 60 and 100 people died. That's not folklore, that's a body count with parish burial records. Yeah, the only mystery is what the hell was doing the killing. Between 1764 and 1767, something tore through the Gévaudan region of France with the kind of efficiency that made King Louis XV personally lose his mind. He sent professional wolf hunters, dragoons, and eventually his own royal gun bearer to find one animal. The crown threw serious resources at a single predator in rural France, which is, not ideal for morale. Here's where it gets complicated. Witness descriptions were all over the place. Some described a creature the size of a calf, up to 2 meters long. Others mentioned reddish fur, others dark gray. Some said it had a massive head and unusually broad chest. The inconsistency is the problem, and the attack methodology was worse. Consistent targeting of the head and throat. Victims found partially consumed. This wasn't a wolf getting lucky once or twice. This was sustained predation on humans over 3 years. In 1765, the royal gun bearer shot a large gray wolf and declared the beast dead. Case closed. Except the killings didn't stop. They kept going for another 2 years until Jean Chastel shot a large wolf-like canine in 1767. After that, the attacks finally tapered off. The leading theories range from an unusually large wolf to a wolf-dog hybrid to an escaped exotic animal from a private menagerie. Nobody knows for certain, and that's what makes it stick. But if a single misplaced predator caused that much documented carnage in 18th century France, imagine what's lurking in millions of acres of unexplored Pacific Northwest wilderness. Bigfoot. Most people hear Bigfoot and immediately think costume. Guy in a suit, case closed. But here's the thing. The single most important piece of evidence in cryptid history is a 59.5-second film shot on October 20th, 1967, and after nearly 60 years, nobody has been able to prove it's fake. Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were riding horseback through Bluff Creek, California, when they captured footage of a large bipedal creature walking along a creek bed. The figure turns, looks directly at the camera, and keeps moving. Simple enough. Except the creature's shoulder muscles visibly contract during its arm swing. Its gait is completely asymmetric. Biomechanics experts have tried to replicate this with every costume technology available, including modern ones, and the movement pattern still doesn't add up. In 1967, you couldn't fake muscle contraction under synthetic fur. You just couldn't. Stride analysis puts the creature at 7 to 8 feet tall and somewhere between 300 and 500 pounds. Over 2,500 documented sightings cluster along the Pacific Northwest Ridge system. Now, a man named Bob Hieronymus came forward in 2004 claiming he wore the suit. Case closed, right? Turns out no. The biomechanics community looked at his claim and essentially said the physical proportions don't work. The guy who says he did it can't explain how he did it. A 2014 DNA analysis tested alleged Bigfoot hair samples and found they all matched known animals, mostly bears, which is basically the word that defines this entire case. 2,500 sightings. 0 authenticated remains. One film that nobody can debunk and nobody can prove. But if Bigfoot owns the forests, wait until you hear about the thing lurking in Lake Champlain. The Champ. The Mansi photograph is the single strongest piece of lake monster evidence in North America, stronger than anything from Loch Ness, and I can prove it. On July 5th, 1977, Sandra Mansi was standing near the shore of Lake Champlain when she snapped a photo of something breaking the surface. A long neck, a small head, roughly 12 to 15 feet of whatever this thing was, just casually existing in broad daylight. Here's where it gets interesting. Multiple researchers have analyzed the image, trying to replicate the creature using plastic models, debris, logs, anything you could reasonably use to fake a lake monster in 1977. Nobody has produced a convincing match. The shape, the way it interacts with the water surface, the scale relative to the waves. None of it lines up with common hoax explanations, which is, not ideal for the skeptics. But this thing didn't start with Sandra Mansi. The Abenaki people described a large serpent living in that lake centuries before any European set foot in the region. Pre-1607 oral history, 0 media influence, 0 motivation to fabricate a tourist attraction. Since the 1800s, Lake Champlain has accumulated over 300 reported sightings. A significant number involved multiple witnesses watching from completely different locations at the same time. Sonar work has occasionally returned anomalous readings that don't match known fish species. Never visually confirmed. But here's the tension. Lake Champlain is 120 miles long, and only about 35% of its floor has been mapped. Environmental DNA surveys found 0 unusual organisms. So either something has been hiding in the unmapped 65% for centuries, or hundreds of unconnected witnesses all hallucinated the same thing. Neither answer is comfortable. And if you think Champ's evidence is compelling, wait until you hear about the lake that started the entire monster conversation. The Loch Ness Monster. Here's the tragedy of Nessie. The most famous piece of evidence is a toy submarine with a plastic head glued to it. And that single photograph, the so-called surgeon's photo, published April 21st, 1934, poisoned everything. When the hoax was finally confirmed in 1994, it didn't just embarrass the people who believed it. It buried every legitimate piece of data under 6 decades of ridicule. And there is legitimate data. That's the part nobody wants to hear. Sonar investigations conducted between 1968 and 2018 repeatedly detected large unclassified objects measuring 20 to 45 feet beneath the lock's surface. These aren't blurry photos taken by tourists after 3 pints. These are sonar returns from organized scientific surveys, and nobody can explain them. Then there's the 1972 underwater flipper photograph captured by Robert Rines at roughly 45 feet deep. The appendage appeared to measure 6 to 8 feet long, and its shape didn't obviously match any known freshwater species in Scotland. This photograph predates digital manipulation entirely. You couldn't fake it with a laptop because laptops didn't exist yet. Over the decades, hundreds of sightings have been reported, many involving multiple independent witnesses seeing the same thing at the same time. That's not mass hysteria, that's corroboration. Now, a 2019 eDNA study found no evidence of large unknown vertebrates in the loch, which sounds definitive until you learn that Loch Ness holds roughly 7.5 billion cubic meters of water, and vast stretches of the loch floor remain unmapped. That's like searching one shelf in a warehouse and declaring the building empty. But if you think a lake hiding its secrets is unsettling, wait until you hear about the thing that terrorized an entire state for a week straight: the Jersey Devil. Here's a cryptid case where the sheer volume of witnesses is the evidence. Over 1,000 people in a single week, not spread across decades, not scattered across a continent. 1 week, January 16th through the 23rd, 1909, New Jersey and Pennsylvania. The Jersey Devil legend traces back to 1735 colonial records, which means people in the Pine Barrens have been reporting this thing for nearly 300 years. But nothing compares to that 1909 wave. Over 1,000 confirmed sightings in 7 days, and the descriptions were disturbingly consistent across more than 100 independent witnesses. 4 to 6 feet tall, bat wings, forked tail, cloven hooves, a horse-like face, which is, not a real animal. That combination doesn't exist anywhere in biology. Bat wings and cloven hooves have never appeared together in any known species, living or extinct. So either 1,000 people across 2 states simultaneously hallucinated the exact same impossible creature, or something was physically there that science can't account for. Track casts were recovered and put on display at museums, though formal analysis proved inconclusive. Some tracks resembled canine prints, others looked equine. A $10,000 bounty went up in February 1909. Nobody ever collected it, and then it just stopped. The concentrated sightings vanished after that single week. Sporadic reports trickle in, fewer than 5 per decade, all the way through 2024, but nothing even approaching that 1909 density. Whatever happened in those 7 days, it happened once and never repeated. But if 1,000 witnesses in New Jersey sounds hard to explain, wait until you hear about the living dinosaur that indigenous communities in Central Africa have been describing for centuries, the Mokele-mbembe. A living dinosaur hiding in the Congo sounds absolutely ridiculous, but the testimony behind this one is genuinely hard to dismiss. Central African legends describe a semi-aquatic creature lurking in the Congo Basin's remote swamps, and these accounts predate European contact by centuries. The name translates from Lingala as one who stops the flow of rivers, which is either poetic or terrifyingly literal. Descriptions put it at 15 to 35 feet long, with a long neck, 4 legs, brownish coloration, and an herbivorous diet, basically a sauropod dinosaur, just casually alive. Here's where it gets interesting. In 1980 and 1981, American zoologist Roy McCall led expeditions into the Likuwala region and gathered multiple eyewitness accounts from indigenous peoples. These weren't vague campfire stories. Witnesses independently described the creature's feeding behavior, its specific height relative to humans, and a unique neck posture independently. Separate people describing the same posture of an animal that matches 0 known African fauna. That's not folklore, that's pattern recognition. And these descriptions stayed consistent across decades of separate accounts. Same neck, same legs, same diet, same animal. But here's the sobering part. 8 dedicated scientific expeditions launched between 1980 and 2012 recovered exactly 0 skeletal remains, 0 photographs, and 0 biological samples. The Congo Basin covers approximately 1.3 million square miles, with a massive percentage still unexplored. So if anything that size could hide anywhere on Earth, it's there. But could theoretically hide, and definitely exists, are very different sentences. years. Still, citing independent witnesses across decades describing the same feeding posture of an unknown animal is the kind of thing that keeps you up at night. But if a living dinosaur wasn't strange enough for you, wait until you hear about the thing that floated out of the woods in Flatwoods, West Virginia. The Flatwoods Monster. Every cryptid on this list has one thing in common. Multiple sightings, repeat encounters, decades of reports stacking up. The Flatwoods Monster doesn't play by those rules. It showed up exactly once, traumatized everyone present, and was never seen again. September 12th, 1952, a small group of witnesses near Flatwoods, West Virginia, mostly kids along with a local mother and a National Guardsman, encountered something standing 10 to 12 feet tall with a spade-shaped head, a metallic body, and glowing red eyes. The thing was hovering 2 to 3 feet off the ground, not walking, hovering, which is, not ideal. But here's where it gets interesting. This wasn't just a visual sighting. The witnesses reported a foul, sulfurous odor filling the area, and every single one of them experienced nausea and a metallic taste in their mouths afterward. You can misidentify a shape in the dark, sure. You can't misidentify your own body making you sick. Medical examinations found no pathological cause for the symptoms. No explanation. Just a group of people who all got violently nauseous at the same time in the same place after seeing the same impossible thing, and the broader context makes it worse. That same week, unusual aerial phenomena were being reported across the surrounding region. This wasn't an isolated encounter. It was part of a regional wave of strange activity, and the Flatwoods Monster was the centerpiece. Dozens of follow-up expeditions found zero physical residue, no impressions, no biological material, nothing. It appeared once, left no trace, and vanished from existence. I don't know what to tell you, but if a creature that shows up once and disappears sounds unsettling, wait until you hear about the ones that showed up, stuck around all night, and wouldn't stop climbing on the roof. The Kelly Hopkinville Goblins. Here's the thing about eyewitness testimony. It's usually garbage. People misremember colors, heights, shapes, timelines. Two people can watch the same car accident and give you completely different descriptions of the vehicle. So when 12 people on a Kentucky farm in 1955 sat down in separate police interviews and described the exact same creature with nearly identical detail, that's statistically bizarre. On August 21st, 1955, the Sutton family reported an hours-long siege by up to 8 small humanoid creatures. 3 to 4 feet tall, gray skin, large pointed ears, clawed hands, luminous eyes. The things climbed onto the roof, peered through windows, and scratched at the doors like they were trying to get into a party they weren't invited to. The family responded the way any reasonable Kentucky household would. They grabbed their guns and opened fire. Zero effect. The creatures didn't bleed, didn't fall, didn't even flinch, which is, not ideal. Now here's where skeptics come in with the barn owl theory. And look, I get it. Barn owls have big eyes and ear tufts, but these were rural Kentuckians. They knew what an owl looked like. 12 people did not mistake a bird for a clawed, gray-skinned humanoid and then independently describe identical features to state police. Speaking of state police, they showed up that same evening and conducted an on-site investigation. This is one of the very few humanoid encounter cases with same-night law enforcement confirmation, not a report filed 3 days later. But despite extensive searches, authorities recovered zero physical evidence. No bodies, no blood, no organic material. Whatever those things were, they didn't leave a trace. But if faceless goblins terrorizing a farmhouse sounds bad, so wait until you hear about the 7-foot winged creature that showed up right before a bridge killed 46 people. Mothman. Between November 1966 and December 1967, over 100 people in Point Pleasant, West Virginia reported seeing the same thing. A humanoid figure, 6 to 7 feet tall, with a 10-foot wingspan and glowing red eyes that witnesses described as hypnotic. Not reflective, not catching light, generating their own. The first encounter set the tone for everything that followed. Two couples driving near an abandoned TNT plant watched the creature lift off from the ground and follow their car. They floored it to 100 miles per hour. The thing kept pace without effort, wings barely moving. But the detail that still gets people is the sound. Witnesses described a high-pitched screech, something shrill and piercing that didn't match anything they'd ever heard. Not a bird, not a bat, not anything in North American fauna taxonomy. A shriek that sounded wrong on a primal level, like whatever was making it shouldn't exist. For 13 months, sightings piled up. Consistent descriptions from independent witnesses who had zero contact with each other. Same height, same wings, sightings, same red eyes, same impossible speed. Then on December 15th, 1967, the Silver Bridge collapsed during rush hour traffic, killing 46 people. And every single Mothman sighting stopped. Not tapered off, not gradually declined, stopped that exact day. The concentrated sightings never returned. No physical evidence was ever recovered. No bones, no feathers, no authenticated photographs. Nothing in the fossil record even resembles it. Here's what makes this case different from everything else we've covered. It's not about what people saw, it's about when they stopped seeing it. This is the only documented cryptid occurrence in history that's temporally locked to a catastrophic event. Either that's the most haunting coincidence in American history, or something was trying to warn those people. We started this video with the giant squid, an animal that scientists swore couldn't exist until one washed up on a beach. We've been wrong about what shares this world with us before. The most honest thing anyone can say about the things we've covered today is simple: we don't know. And that should make you a little uncomfortable. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more, click the video on the screen now.